I never thought my father's humble job would bring us to this unbelievable moment. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The world felt heavy, thick with secrets, and my heart pounded in my chest as I stood in that dimly lit room. Shadows danced on the walls, whispering truths I was not ready to confront. Fragments of the evening played over and over in my mind, each one sharper than the last. The sound of my father's voice echoed, shaking yet firm, through the silence. He always seemed ordinary, my dad, with his worn-out jeans and tired smile, but that day, he was unrecognizable. It started with the Callan urgent, raspy voice through the receiver, telling him to meet at a nondescript diner on the edge of town. "Don't tell anyone," he insisted, his fingers trembling as he hung up. I remember the heat rising in my cheeks. I felt a pull to follow him, to understand this sudden weight on his shoulders. I peeked through the window as he left, his silhouette swallowed by the night. My mind raced with questions, racing faster than the rhythm of my heartbeat. Who was he meeting? Why the secrecy? The air was thick with unspoken worries, layered with fear and confusion that clung to me like a second skin. My mother glanced up from her cooking, brow furrowed, sensing the tension. "Is everything all right?" she asked, voice low, like she feared the answer. There was something in the air that night, something undefined but tangible. I drifted into the shadows, thoughts spiraling. Hours passed as I waited, the clock ticking louder with every second. My heart clenched when he returned, eyes haunted, a heavy folder clutched in his hands. The sight of it sent a chill down my spine. He locked the door behind him with a deliberate click, and a suffocating silence hung in the room. I could almost hear the pulse of his heart echoing inside. "I found something," he started, voice trembling, but stopped short. I held my breath, a lump forming in my throat. The heaviness of his silence suffocated me. I felt the walls closing in, shadows shifting ever closer. Just then, the folder slipped from his grip, papers spilling across the floor like broken promises. My hands trembled as I instinctively helped him gather them, and as a single sheet slipped from my fingers, I caught a glimpse of something, words that danced between danger and disbelief. "Top secret," I read, the words searing into my mind. In that moment, I knew our lives were about to change forever. His eyes met mine, and there was a storm in them, a mix of dread and urgency. "I didn't expect this, I didn't want you to know." His voice trailed off like a whisper lost in the winds of fate. Then came the knock, a sharp, loud thud that shook me to my core. It echoed through the house, a reminder that some truths are never meant to remain hidden. We exchanged a quick glance, both realizing that whatever was beneath that door had the power to shatter our world. My heart raced, a frantic rhythm, as my father's face reflected 1,000 fears. Had he brought home something dangerous? Or was it the very presence waiting for us beyond that door that would unravel everything? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The knock came again, more insistent, as if demanding entry into a world that had slipped into chaos. My father's eyes turned to me, a mixture of worry and determination etched across his features. The way he stood, shoulders hunched, a man reduced yet resilient, sent another wave of fear washing over me. My heart thudded in my chest, drowning out the world around us, and for a split second, I glimpsed the little boy he had been, the boy who used to chase fireflies with an unstoppable joy. "Stay here," he whispered, hesitating, as if the weight of those words could protect me. But in that moment, I felt a fierce rebellion ignite within me. Whatever fear loomed behind that door was also my fear. I couldn't stand by and allow darkness to seep into our lives unsanctioned. Before I could rationalize my actions, I stepped forward, pressing my palm against the rusty knob, my breath quickening as I turned it slowly, inching towards an uncertain future. The door swung open with a loud creak, the hinges crying out, the sound reverberating painfully against the silence. Standing before us was a figure cloaked in shadows, a hood low over their eyes obscuring their intentions. "We need to talk," the voice rasped, cold and clipped. Each word felt like ice slicing through the warmth of the room, and I instinctively stepped closer to my father, seeking solace in his unwavering presence. "What do you want?" he asked, voice steadier than I felt, but I could hear the quiver. The figure shifted, taking a step forward. "You know what this is about." My father's expression darkened, a storm brewing in those familiar eyes as he clenched his fists at his sides. The air thickened with tension, prickling against my skin. I glanced across the floor, the scattered papers like confetti of a life about to explode. "Just give us time," my father pleaded, an edge of desperation creeping into his tone. The hooded figure chuckled, the sound chilling in its indifference. "Time is a luxury you no longer have. You've opened doors best left closed." I turned my gaze to my father, desperation clawing at my insides. "What have you done?" I whispered, the question escaping before I could catch it. His eyes flickered, guilt mixing with the fear already painted across his face. Just then, the unthinkable happened, a small voice chimed in from behind me. "Dad?" My little sister, Lily, emerged from the hallway, her blonde curls bouncing with each step, blissfully unaware of the tension that filled the room. She had always been the light in our lives, smiling without reservation, and in that moment her innocence felt out of place among the shadows. "Lily, go back to your room," I urged softly, but her gaze shifted to the figure, curious and unyielding. The presence straightened, the aura of menace momentarily flickering at the sight of her. "You should keep her away from this," they warned, shooting a glance at my father, who swallowed hard, the weight of the moment settling heavily on his shoulders. "Just tell us what you want," he repeated, his voice a low growl as he stepped protectively in front of Lily. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Would the stranger turn their threats towards her? They remained silent for a beat, considering, before finally speaking, "You know manila folders contain what you need to hide. But this one is a trap." The declaration hovered in the air, palpable and heavy. I exchanged worried glances with my father. "You have a choice," the figure added, "either hand over what you have, or face the consequences." A shiver cascaded down my spine. The papers my father had spilled earlier held notes of a dark and twisted world, a world I wanted no part of. The destructive implications began to swirl in my mind, unraveling a future I had not dreamed of, yet beneath that trepidation, flickers of fierce resolution ignited within me. "Who are you?" I interrupted, my voice shaky but tinged with defiance. "What do you want from us?" The figure seemed taken aback by my outburst, and for the first time, hesitation flickered across their shadowed face. "Your father has enemies he can't escape," they replied, the coldness in their voice piercing through me. "And he's brought them to your doorstep." The words hit like a punch to the stomach. My father turned to me sharply, his eyes widening with concern. "No, this isn't about you two," he stressed, desperation raising his voice. "You need to trust me. I'll protect you both." As the enormity of our predicament bore down on us, Lily tugged on my sleeve, confusion wrinkling her brow. "Why does he want our folder?" she asked, her innocence a desperate plea for clarity amid the chaos. Before anyone could respond, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house, the sound reverberating like a bomb going off. My heart dropped, it was an unmistakable signal more turmoil was about to erupt. The figures behind the door were coming for us, and with that reality came the crushing weight of all I'd need to protect. "Run!" my father shouted, shoving us towards the narrow hallway. Panic exploded within me as I realized in that moment, the world I knew was fraying at the seams, and we were standing on the precipice of something far grander and darker than I ever imagined. Suddenly, the figure lunged forward, a swift move, threatening and terrifying. I could only brace myself for the inevitable as I wrestled with the reality that our small, fragile life was fracturing. My father's hands closed over mine. "Whatever happens, we face it together," he declared. The words felt like a promise, but whether they were enough to shield us from the impending storm was a question we'd all soon find the answer to. The moment hung in the air, suspended and fraught with peril. As my father's grip tightened around my hand, I felt the warmth of his resolve seep into my skin. But that warmth was a thin veil over the cold reality creeping closer. The figure now unmasked was advancing, their face a ghastly blur of shadows, a vessel for all the fears that had burgeoned in our family's heart. "Run!" My father yelled again, but instead of retreating down the hallway towards potential safety, I froze at the threshold of our living room, torn between the instinct to listen and the gnawing need to understand. "What do you know?" I called out, voice trembling, unyielding, but the figure only smiled, a slow curl of their lips that sent chills racing down my spine. "You think you can protect her?" They motioned towards Lily, who stood wide-eyed and trembling, clinging to the hem of my shirt as if it could shield her from danger. "Don't," my father warned, his voice dangerously low, a protective growl rumbling from deep within. But the figure pressed on, relentless. "You're all tangled in his web now. It's too late to protect anyone." And then, as if the universe had conspired against us, the room seemed to shift. The air thickened, vibrating with a tension that told me a storm was brewing. All at once, the dread coiling in my stomach morphed into a tangible force, pressing against my chest. In one swift movement, as if time had slowed, my world shattered. A horrifying crash came from the back door, the sound of splintering wood slicing through the air, and I turned, my heart racing, as a new presence surged into our home. An unfamiliar figure, equally masked in shadow, collided with the intruder. The force sent both of them sprawling to the ground, and for a breathless moment, the room held its volume, everything suspended in the anguish of uncertainty. "Stay back!" my father shouted, positioning himself protectively in front of Lily and me, but his face was taut with fear. We would never have anticipated this twist. Encircled by chaos, the walls started to close in, panic hounded every thought, and the intensity of the situation threatened to unravel whatever composure I had left. A faint glimmer of light broke through the darkness as the two figures wrestled, struggling for dominance on the floor. I could barely distinguish their forms, shrouded in the dim light of the room, but it was then that I reached for the ember of hope igniting within me. If my father could fight, then so could I. "Help him!" I blurted out, grasping Lily by the shoulders and pushing her towards the doorway. "Get help!" Lily's eyes widened, her innocent gaze flickering with trust and trepidation. "But what about you?" she whispered, her voice quivering, scarcely above a breath. "Just go," I pleaded, pushing her toward the hallway. Though every fiber of me wanted to stay, to protect, I knew she had to be safe. The fight surged back into my father's voice, a deep roar erupting from him as he grappled the other figure with newfound desperation. The hall felt interminable as I forced Lily to move faster. Each step seemed burdened with the weight of uncertainty, yet with every beat of my heart, I could feel the resolve building within me. We couldn't simply abandon him. He needed us. In an act of defiance that was uniquely mine, I pivoted on my heel and surged back towards the living room, where two forms writhed on the floor. The figure that had threatened us now held my father in a vice grip, darkness swirling as if it had shape and form. But before my father could begin to fight back fully, a rush of adrenaline propelled me forward, and I shouted the only thing that came to mind, "Let him go." Both figures turned as I brandished the nearest object, a ceramic figurine from the mantel that had watched over our home for years, now wielded as a shield and weapon. The surprise that crossed my father's face was evident, but in that split second, it bought him the time he needed. The shout tugged at the edges of my determination, every ounce of love, fear, and hope picture into a singular moment of clarity. In that instant, something profound broke through the tension in the room, the masked figure faltering at my fiery plea. I recognized the moment, it was a flicker of humanity shared in that chaos. Yet before the second could grow tendrils, the other figure, still caught in the struggle, seized the opportunity and shoved my father aside. "Damn it!" I heard my father exclaim as he staggered, the strain revealing how much he had already been battling within himself. The fight felt like a blur, chaos swallowing the air. Then, just as quickly, the newcomers surged to their feet, eyes fixed firmly on us, a strange intensity emanating that tilted the stale air. "They are coming," they warned, grimly reminding me of the world outside our door. And then, just as fast, without warning, an explosion of light, brilliant and blinding, surged from the back of the house. An agonizing screech of metal tore through the darkness, and all at once the front door slammed wide, framing a silhouette none of us could fathom. I felt the breath hitch in my throat, struggle bubbling up inside me like a tidal wave of emotion. The threshold before us was now obscured, caught between shadows and the light threatening to swallow us whole. "We need to go," the newcomer insisted, casting a glance back towards the approaching three, a shimmering buzz of danger radiating dangerously close. "What do you know?" My father growled, but I sensed the worry weaving through his tone. The figure, a woman now standing in defeats, looked at us with resolved eyes, her message clear yet chilling: "This isn't a game. Your lives depend on what you decide next." And then the doorframe shattered behind her, a heart-stopping reality crashing down like dominoes, the rush of help unexpectedly turning from hope into horror. I grasped my father's hand tighter, the connection electric, as the tumult ceased to dawdle, and the moment shrank to its core. What lay before us was more than a mere choice. It was the precipice of everything we had known. The moment to flee or stand, we faced an impossible decision. My heart raced as the blistering reality of our situation unfolded around me. I clung to my father's hand, desperate to anchor myself to him as fear danced around us like a sinister waltz. The woman, the newcomer, stood resolute, the shadows of our home flashing against her frame like the sporadic pulses of our hopelessness. Behind her, the door had become an entryway to our worst nightmares. "Run!" My father commanded again, his voice now strained with a barely contained despair. But the essence of his plea, the very heat of his command wrapped in vulnerability, stirred something deeper within me. I could see the fight in his eyes, the remnants of his spirit wavering under the weight of impending doom, and it ignited a flicker of bravery deep inside my core. "Wait." I blurted out, my voice trembling yet forceful. "We can't just leave them." I gestured towards the writhing shadows amidst the chaos, the battle still fierce and unrelenting. "It's too late." The woman shouted, her urgency quickening. "They've come for you. For all of you. You must trust me." She was pleading, her voice cracking, the steel facade bending just slightly as desperation seeped into her tone, but trust was a currency I couldn't afford. Not now. Not when the echoes of pain and disarray pricked at my senses, reminding me of everything at stake. My father's grip tightened further as he was pulled between instinct and fear, the palpable tension between flight and fight rattling in the air like thunder. From the living room erupted a roar, a guttural, primal sound that sent shivers pirouetting down my spine. I didn't want to see what lay beyond, but a morbid curiosity fused with my determination drove me forward. I took a step past my father, unwilling to allow anyone to strip away the last of our hope. "Stay behind me," he warned, his voice layered with authority, yet I could hear the quiver of concern underneath. My own resolve began to falter as the shadows tangled, a cloak enveloping the remnants of light in our home. "She's right. We don't have time for this." The stranger's face was fierce yet vulnerable, as if she understood the war between the heart and the mind all too well. For a brief instant, I saw a hint of compassion flicker in her eyes, and it pierced through my fear, offering something unexpected, a sliver of understanding. "Why should we trust you?" My voice broke through the clash, shaking but steadfast. "We barely even know who you are." But rather than forge a response, the woman darted between circumstances, her hands frantically gesturing towards the chaos. "I'm here to protect you, and I can help you find safety. But every second you linger, the darkness closes in," and just as those words left her lips, the intruder from the shadows howled, crashing through the remnants of our home, scattering memories and pieces of who we once were. My heart ached for everything we risked losing: the innocence, the facade of normalcy. I caught my breath, forcing my legs to stay planted, anchoring myself amidst the tempest. There it was again, the mix of confusion and horror that gripped me. The darkness pulsed and swirled, but now it began to take form, a disgusting manifestation of all our fears, boiling over into something tangible, something malicious. "Get your family out of here." It was my father's command, fierce and resolute, laced with the compassion that had always characterized his spirit. I saw him turn back, a silent promise hanging in the air, as if he was preparing to face whatever loomed behind us, the light. The woman urged, her eyes scanning the room, locking in on an embroidered curtain fluttering by the window, a remnant of a past so idyllic it seemed surreal. "The light can burn away the shadows. But we need to focus," I felt my breath hitch. The luminous cobalt pool of goodbye enveloped us, a parapet overshadowing the dread as I eyed my father, the pillar of safety shrouded in resolve. I had always viewed him as indestructible, yet now, fear blurred its outline, the ghosts of uncertainty etched permanent scars within me, now. She cried, her voice laden with urgency, barely breaking through my heavy heart. "Provoke the light, remember what you cherish." Grasping the ancient figurine still heavy in my palm, I hurled it towards the light streaming from the window. It shattered across the floor in a flash of brilliance, echoing a cascade of memories, igniting the air with a radiant burst of golden flames that danced. "Hold on." The woman grasped my arm, anchoring me to reality. "You can do this. Think of every moment of joy, every fragment that gives your heart life." The shadow figures howled, fighting against the luminous surge, but something within me began to stir. The laughter of family gatherings, the warmth of summer afternoons, the fresh scent of the garden my mother tended. All the fragments of our lives swelled at the edges of the valley formed between the forces clashing around us. And then, suddenly, the light embraced me with an intensity so rich it felt like a resurgence of hope. Together I rallied, grasping my father's and Lily's hands, summoning every ounce of emotional power. We plunged within that radiant memory, thrumming beneath the closeness of our love and fragility. In that defiant stance, against the groaning shadows, a blinding roar erupted, filling the air until it pulsated with an incandescent warmth. But with it came a deep uncertainty, a reverberation of anguish, as if the darkness sensed its impending doom and retaliated with all it had left. Then, when the world turned even more chaotic, a chilling scream clawed through the air, piercing through my concentration. It was suffused with anguish, a loss that wrenched me away from that moment of light. That I turned, face-stricken as the realization hit. My father, caught in the vortex of turmoil, had thrown himself into protecting us. His form was now caught against the tidal wave of shadows, swirling around him. No. I screamed, tearing away from Lily's grasp. I raced toward him, desperate, as the edge of hope flickered like a candle against an oncoming storm. But all the urgency in my heart collided with the cold, dark reality before me, leaving me perched between despair and the rapidly shutting doors of light. And then, just as the flames of light flickered weakly, a sharp truth uncoiled beneath the surface, something deeper than shadows, far more profound than I dared to comprehend. What if our salvation was also our greatest sacrifice? The remnants of the world crumbled around us, holding its breath, waiting for the final act to unfold. I could feel the energy shifting, my breath tangled in the slow, measured rhythm of inevitability as I plunged forward. The cliff of anguish awaited, and I was unprepared for the revelation that awaited. The shadows around us churned like a storm unleashed, and with every heartbeat, the room grew heavier, suffocating under the weight of our suffering. My father stood at the epicenter, a beacon of love now compromised by the oppressive darkness that lingered. As I drew nearer, fear wrapped around my throat, making it hard to breathe, harder still to act. The word erupted from me, a raw scream of denial, a desperate plea against the swirling mass. I could see the shadows inching closer, tendrils snaking around his form, linked with the essence of my father's spirit. My knees buckled, and I stumbled to him, aching to bridge the chasm of despair that threatened to swallow us whole. "Stay back," he shouted, a fierce protectiveness woven into his tone. His expression shifted, merging fury with fear. "You have to save yourselves. I'll hold it off." "No, you can't." The protest was instinctual, fueled by an unyielding bond that coursed between us. I could feel the tears forming, pooling sorrowfully in the corners of my eyes. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. Not like these, a final sacrifice swallowed by despair without a chance to fight. the woman stood at a distance, urgency compelling her to step closer, yet she reverberated with a silent understanding of the struggle playing out before us. Her gaze locked onto mine, and in that fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of something I had long given up on: hope. Focus on your love for him. Call it forth. Think of everything he means to you. Her voice cut through the din, electric and filled with a fervor that ignited the vague embers in my core. But how could I think of love when dread surrounded me, wrapping its icy fingers around my heart? Memories flashed through my mind: me father lifting me high into the summer sky, teaching me to ride my bike, the way he sang softly to soothe my nightmares. That I in a desperate frenzy, I closed my eyes, consciously piecing together fragments of our life, constructing a shield against the encroaching darkness. Behind my eyelids, I could see it: family dinners, shared laughter, the brilliance of my father's unwavering support, the deep timbre of his voice as he recounted fables of bravery and love. Dad. My voice shook as I called, desperate for him to hear, for him to feel the warmth of my heart reaching across the void. Fight with me. Remember when you taught me to trust in the light? You're my light. The shadows recoiled at the sound of my love, the raw emotion weaving through the air like wildflowers pushing through concrete. The darkness shivered as if disturbed by the very essence of our bond. A strange shift enveloped me, tending to that flickering flame of hope, urging me to move with purpose. Gradually, a whirring light began to pulse within me, no longer a mere glimmer but a burgeoning star fueled by my defiance. I believe in you, in us. My voice surged through the chaos, pulling upon every fiber of our connection, the monumental memories lifting us, a shared strength ignited. Slowly, the light began to expand, folding into a protective cocoon around my father even as the shadows retaliated. His eyes were wide now, mingling disbelief with astonishment as he felt the swell of my spirit. Together, sweetheart. I called again, spurred on by the tidal wave of love enveloping him. Let's fight it. We won't give up. The intruding darkness writhed as we pressed forward, my voice intertwining with his, merging hope and courage into a radiant ball of light that cut through despair. That I in the maelstrom of chaos, I scrambled to bridge the shadowy space between us, hands reaching out, aching to grasp his. As I got closer, the darkness lashed out, grasping at my ankles, urging me to relent. Keep going. The woman urged, her voice rising above the chaos, imploring me to push through. In that moment, I realized the truth that chiseled through the gloom, that love was not just a warm embrace but a ferocious force, an unyielding power that could defy the deepest night. Every inch of me cried out with the need to protect, the need to fight, the need to truly live. Fight. I screamed, a clarion call reverberating through my very essence. You taught me that courage is not the absence of fear, but our response to it. My father's gaze met mine, and in that instant, I saw a flicker of his own ignited courage. The shadows recoiled further, howling as they sensed the shift, the vulnerability beginning to slip away. Together, we stood amidst the torrent, me heart and resolve straining under the pressure of our love and our fear. But just as the tide of our belief surged, a brutal recognition struck me like a slaw pie of time itself paused. The woman's eyes widened, disbelief mingling with horror as she pointed behind me. No. You must. The shadows burrowed deeper, pulling harder, revealing something horrific in their depths. A figure shrouded in darkness, eyes glowing a sickly green, emerging from the chaos. My heart lurched as the figure coalesced into a form I thought lost to the years, haunting echoes calling back from my past. Mom. The word slipped from my lips, barely a whisper, trembling with the weight of all that we lost, all that I had held on to in fragile silence. Before me stood the essence of a memory thought devoured by time, wrapped in the malevolence that deepened both our fears and our hopes. Run to her. The woman screamed, desperation twisting her features. But know that the shadows feed on what was never resolved. Everything inside me spun wildly. The balance of suffering shifted as I faced the specter of my mother's memory, now morphed into something far more sinister. Conflicted emotions erupted, longing for her, yet grappling with the pain of her absence. The visage flickered, dark and chaotic, clashing against the light as my heart thudded with uncertainty. Would embracing this shadow be my salvation or my undoing? The choice loomed before me, charged with the echoes of what could have been, and yet, there hung the unanswered question: would it pull me deeper into despair or set us free from its relentless grip? The shadows shuddered around me, the air tinged with the scent of memories and longing, as the figure of my mother became clearer, her familiar silhouette layered with darkness. It was surreal, yet painfully vivid, a haunting reminder of all I had lost. "Mom," I whispered, disbelief clawing at the edges of my heart. The figure smiled, but the curve of her lips bore a hollow semblance of warmth, heavy with the pain we endured. "You've grown so brave, my love," she murmured, her voice weaving through the chaos, a siren call both inviting and dangerous. "Stay away from her." My father's roar broke through the thickening tension as he shifted protectively, the protective glow still flickering around him. It was a reminder of his resolve, of the bond we had formed stronger than any shadow that threatened to tear us apart. "Why are you here?" The words fell from my lips, tinged with an urgency I could not suppress. The darkness around her writhed, tightening its grip, and I could feel its insidious fingers reaching for me again. "You aren't real. This is just a trick," but there was a familiarity in her presence that felt achingly real, each heartbeat reverberating with time lost. "I'm as real as your love for me," she replied, her eyes reflecting a kaleidoscope of emotions. "But you must confront the truth to reclaim what we all cherish." The shadows danced, thrummed with energy, sharpening the contrast between her light and their expansive darkness. "Everything was left unspoken," she continued, her voice softer now, and yet, each syllable resonated with both pain and possibility. "You must face that part of your heart. Let go, my dear. Don't let them take you. Let go." My stomach churned, each word threatening to unravel the tiny thread of strength I had woven. You're not real, you can't be real. I lost you." A shriek echoed through the chamber, and I felt the shadows clamp down tighter, feeding off my fury and despair. In that moment, I could not discern where my grief ended, and the darkness began. "You aren't my mother. You left me." I cried out, the weight of my accusations tumbling into the void between us. Her brow furrowed, and for a fleeting moment, the warmth in her gaze flickered, revealing a shard of profound sorrow. "I never chose to leave," she implored, her voice soft but edged with the sharpness of an old scar. "It was taken from me, a battle lost to the shadows that still haunt you. But I am here now, a memory forged from your love. Don't let it trick you. Don't trust her." The woman's voice surged, a beacon of raw desperation cutting through the evolving chaos. "Remember the truth you hold, the light that binds you and your father. This being is a masquerade bound to distract you." The rage within me threatened to combust as the shadows snarled their agreement, swirling around me like a cyclone, and snaring my heart with tendrils of doubt. My memories of her danced within me, forged from innocence and love, and yet tainted by loss. I could feel my mind struggling to hold the line between devastation and longing. "Fight, sweetheart. Fight for our family." My father's voice sliced through the tumult, reminding me of the countless moments we shared, of the bond still unbroken. Mom's face morphed, twisting in anguish, the very essence of her presence starting to decay under the relentless assault of darkness. "You have the power, my love, to reawaken the truth," she urged, desperation coiling around her words. "Let the light in. It's waiting on you." My heart raced, caught in a war that profoundly transcended the physical. The shadows rippled in response, sensing the tide shifting. It clawed at the edges of my resolve, pestering my heart with a heavy, intoxicating sadness. The raw, honest parts of my spirit urged me to accept this touch, this apparition, while the shadows whispered deceptive lies tangling with both love and resentment, urging me to embrace them instead. That I took a deep, trembling breath, blinking against the pain that threatened to consume me. "I just wanted you back," I shouted into the maelstrom, my voice layered with desperation, vulnerability. Flooding forward. Tears streamed down my cheeks, a catharsis born from the ache of my heart's unfulfilled longing. "I want to feel safe again." Suddenly, the air shifted, and I felt a gentle warmth wrapping around my soul, binding me tighter with my father's presence. "You have always been safe in love," he murmured. "You fought for me, and I for you. That bond is stronger than any evil, stronger than despair. With every ounce of strength I could muster, I stepped toward both figures, the mother I had lost and the shadows that flickered, threatening to drag us into suffering once more. I choose love, I declared, testing the edges of my power, ready to confront the embodiment of my fears, the specter of my past. But then, a ripple pulsed through the shadow fabric enveloping us, the darkness shuddering violently as it began to shift again, its depth bending towards a new direction. I felt the emergence of a memory I had buried under years of yearning and disbelief. Something deep within me began to fracture, pulling the taut strings of the moment even tighter, preparing to reveal the inevitable truth that in a sudden, heart-wrenching realization, I looked at my father, my heart pounding as the shadows above began to coalesce, forming into a new, undeniable figure looming at the back, a figure that had laid dormant in the chaos until now, a shadow wearing a familiar face, a haunting visage filled with rage and despair. "Why didn't you save me?" it whispered, eyes smoldering with accusation, as recognition sent a jolt of ice through my veins. It was me. I had been the one casting my own shadow. My breath caught in my throat, the precarious tension of this horrifying revelation hanging heavily in the air. The battle had never truly been over, it had merely begun to swirl in a new direction, thrusting us into the teeth of an unimaginable past. The fight for light was intertwined with the very nature of my own heart, not just my father, but me battling for the remnants of a lost soul forged from fragmented memories and unyielding love. "Are you willing to face yourself?" the woman cried, a flicker of hope yet alive within her. But as I stood frozen, emotions crashing like waves inside me, I realized the crucial moment had arrived. Would I find the strength to confront my own shadow, or would I surrender to the darkness that echoed with my greatest fears, snarling ever closer? The air thickened as the revelation pulsed around me. Time ceased to flow as I faced my own shadow, the specter bearing a reflection that cut deeper than the darkest cave. With every terrible whisper that hung in the silence, I felt the undeniable truth clawing at my chest. I had kept so many pieces of myself hidden, buried under layers of grief, regret, and betrayal, crammed down into the recesses of darkness. Why did you let it consume you? The shadow snarled, anger mingling with dread, eyes flickering with fragments of the life I barely remembered. You abandoned me. You gave in to despair. You were meant to protect me. I stumbled backward, the weight of my own accusations cutting deeper than any exterior blow. I had thought I was fighting the demons outside me, the ones that haunted me, but here, right in front of me, was the truth I had fled from. The shadow was a self-portrait painted with the colors of self-loathing and loss, and in its fiery gaze, I recognized its desperation was my own. I breathed, clutching my heart as if to keep the pieces from splintering further. I didn't let you drown. I tried. I fought against it. But the fierceness in my voice faded like an echo in a chasm. I had tried to protect everyone else from my brokenness, and in doing so, I had turned against the very love I carried for myself. Trying isn't enough. It screeched, an eerie symphony of my hidden anguish resonating. You have to confront the truth within. You were never alone, but you chose to wall yourself off. This is the price of your silence. The intensity in its fury mirrored my own fears, shadows spiraling as I teetered on the edge of realization. My mother stood, a beacon amidst the chaos, while my father's protective glow began to falter, the steadfastness fading against the onslaught of shattered hopes. Face it, echoed the woman's voice, impatient yet brimming with a dim hope. You have to accept both the light and the dark, for they are woven into the fabric of your soul. You cannot outrun what you refuse to acknowledge. My heart pounded a relentless march as I locked eyes with my shadow, the reflections of my past swirling in the void between us. As fear threatened to consume me once more, I reached deep inside, pulling forth the fragmented pieces of myself. I see you, I whispered, words trembling with uncertainty yet holding the weight of my vulnerability, and I'm sorry. I never meant to abandon you. I just didn't know how to fight when it felt like I was fighting myself. A flicker of something understanding. Compassion, rippled through the shadow's form as I felt a warmth from beneath the tension, slowly wrapping around the bitter edges of my heart. You still have the power to change the narrative, it hissed, the anger subsiding just a fraction. You can embrace this pain and make it the catalyst for your strength. But only if you are ready to forgive. The acceptance of forgiveness echoed in my head, where long-buried memories clashed like thunder. But was I ready? The shadows trembled as my heart fought the urge to retreat in fear, risking the harmony of a family that had persisted against the worst storms. I want to forgive, I forced out, regret flooding my veins. But the shadows of my choices weigh heavily. I don't even know where to start. Begin by reclaiming the memories of love, my mother implored, stretching her hand toward the darkness that surrounded us. You must reconcile the chaos within before you can face the world outside. As she spoke, the flickering tendrils of light enveloped my shadow, emerald hues mingling like strokes of a painter reviving a canvas once covered in gray. Love and fear coexist, the shadow whispered gently, the ferocity in its presence dimming. And you have every right to feel the pain. Feel it, embrace it. In that moment, the gravity of my existence spiraled upwards, transforming into fragile hope, beckoning me forward. I took a hesitant step, heart racing, as I began to peel back the layers where fear had threatened to suffocate me, yearning to reclaim the love I once wore but discarded. And slowly, painfully, I began to remember. The laughter shared at the kitchen table, my mother's gentle caress, the promise of a future woven in the light of our dreams. Each memory held strength, bridging the rift between heart and shadow, illuminating the darkness layered within. But just as I felt the warmth begin to stitch together the severed edges of my heart, a guttural scream sliced through the air, a fractured blend of anguish and desperation. The shadows writhed back to life violently, retaliating against my burgeoning resolve, slithering into the edges of my consciousness like venomous serpents. Stop. Don't let this become your burden. The voice of my father exploded through the tumult, laced with urgency. We have fought against the longing for too long. Embrace each piece, even if it hurts. Remember us. Tremors of fear licked at my resolve, but as the memories continued to flow, golden threads weaving through the mists, I could feel love emanating from those whom I cherished. The warmest glow settled against my chest, pushing against the shadows that sought to claim me. Tears stung my eyes once more, but this time they were laced with hope. I wouldn't turn away. I would embrace the healing that came from my scars. The road was long, and genuine acceptance would take time. Yet just as I began to feel the awakenings of something beautiful, a low growl emerged from the shifting clouds of darkness that coiled around us. Foolish child. The shadow howled, its voice now a haunting melody dressed in disdain. You cannot just ignore me. I am you, and I will always be part of you. You will never be free. As I staggered backward, the ground beneath us trembled, scars of the past suddenly bursting forth like vivid flames. Each flicker held their own story, each story a potential storm I had yet to weather. The crescendo of dark laughter roared around us, sealing away any semblance of light. I glanced at my mother, hope twisting in her gaze, but I saw something else too, a degradation of fear beneath her strength, revealing layers of memories buried even deeper than I had realized. Had the darkness seeped into her, too? Had she also held tight to shadows not meant for her to carry? The threads of my heart pulled tighter, tension snagging at unshed tears. We were entwined in each other's struggle, and at this moment, I realized all my hopes of breaking free depended on bonding our love, facing not just my own shadow, but the echoes carved into the essence of my lineage. Will you stay with me, Mom? Will you help me fight through the silence? I cried out, as the darkness surged to envelop us once more, but just as the shadows churned, threatening to swallow my plea, a sharp gasp reverberated through the space, piercing the maniacal wail of the darkness, shaking the very foundation of this liminal landscape. I am here, she quavered, voice trembling but strong. I will never abandon you again. In that moment, the shadows recoiled, the coalition of love and fear entwining to build an unbreakable bond. Hope flickered anew, but it was instantly met with confusion, as a dark shape loomed in the periphery, shifting, swirling, growing, a more profound revelation as I clutched my mother's hand, staring wide-eyed at the rising form. Who will you become when faced with the merging of shadows? It hissed, and I felt myself teetering on the brink of realization and fear, the battle of what was to come racing to its apex. Were we to be conscripted to the fate of unyielding torment, or would we finally discover the truth hidden beneath the veil of struggling hearts? The question lingered, heavy with chilling uncertainty, leaving us poised at the edge, hearts beating in sync with the growing shadow that bore the shadows of our very souls. With the chilling words of the newly emerged shape reverberating through the air, I felt a tremor of panic, unsettling the delicate balance I had begun to forge between hope and despair. My mother's grip on my hand tightened, her eyes wide with a recognition that sent shards of fear coiling within me. "This is only the beginning," she whispered, her voice barely rising above the maddening hush that followed. The shadows writhed, a tempest of grief and anger swirling around us, their sinister presence a reminder of the deep fractures left in our family's foundation. I squinted through the darkness, searching for clarity, but all that met me were echoes of memories shrouded in confusion. The shadow looming before us morphed, an amalgamation of every unspoken fear I harbored, the weight of expectations, the sting of loss, the suffocating silence that had quietly seeped into our lives. I instinctively took a step back, realizing that confronting this embodiment was not merely a battle against my past, but a reckoning with the countless ways we had all failed to share the burdens we carried. "Do you truly wish to uncover the truth?" it taunted, weaving through our fears like a spider with its meticulously crafted web. "How much pain are you willing to endure to truly know?" My heart raced at the prospect. The yearning for knowledge came up against the dread of what that knowledge might bear. I hardly had time to grapple with my swirling emotions before the shadow lunged toward us, the air growing cold as it closed the distance. Teeth bared, it spoke with a voice that echoed the pain of countless unsaid words. "Look around you," it screeched. "This is what your silence has wrought. The fear of healing has left you trapped in this storm, wounded, lost, and consumed." I found myself staring at the broken memories swirling in the darkness, my father's loving laughter now reflected as a painful whisper, my mother's gentle encouragement now twisted into despair. Each recollection struck hard, like 1,000 arrows piercing the shield of bravery I had so tenuously crafted. "Stop!" I screamed, the sound almost lost in the cacophony of despair. "You cannot take this from me." But as the shadow writhed and pulsed, there was a flicker of something within the dark, a spark of understanding, a whisper of the truth that dared to surface. "Truth is not black and white." My mother's voice rang out, now filled with steely defiance. "We are all woven into a tapestry of pain and joy. It is in acceptance that we find our strength, and together, we can break through." The shadows hesitated, as if my mother's determination held enough fire to singe their edges. I was taken aback. Her bravery, her unwillingness to cower in the face of anguish, ignited a fire in me as well. "Can we truly move beyond this?" I wondered aloud, my voice wavering. "What if the truth destroys us? What if we fail to protect each other from the pain?" The shape quivered, a deep rumble of laughter escaping its lips like a suffocating mist. "Fail? You already have. You failed to protect yourselves from this reality. The truth will cut deeper than any shadow's pain, but you must dive into it to unearth what's hidden beneath." With each taunting word, my heart waged war against itself. The prospect of unearthing our buried truths was tempting yet terrifying. The memories wrapped around me like vines, each bearing with it warnings of sorrow, struggles, and the very essence of what it meant to carry such pain, and yet, amidst the dread, there was also an undeniable thread of anticipation, a yearning to break free from the bonds of fear that had held my family in silent anguish for so long. What if? I hesitated, grasping for a lifeline. What if the truth brings us closer, instead of tearing us apart? In that moment, I met my mother's gaze. A flicker of hope danced there, igniting a spark behind her eyes. "We must brave the storms to actively choose the light. Together we can illuminate the shadowed corners and transform what hurts into strength." The melody of her convictions pulsated through my veins, wrapping around my heart like a balm. I breathed deeply, the warmth of her resolve coursing through me, stoking the embers of my own courage. "Let's do this," I whispered, fear blending with determination. "Let's uncover every hidden truth. We can't keep running or retreating any longer." A surge of energy rippled between us, sparking the willingness to confront our pain. But just as I reached for my mother, the shadow convulsed violently, its laughter morphing into a furious roar. "You think this power is enough?" it spat, now a chaotic mass of rage and sorrow. You are unprepared for the consequences of unveiling the past. You have no idea what secrets lie waiting. Before I could process the gravity of its words, tendrils of darkness lashed out, surging closer, wrapping around us like a vice grip. I gasped, every breath choked with fear as I felt my resolve waver. Secrets. What secrets? What have you hidden from us? The shadows undulated, revealing itself in gruesome splendor, each unfolding layer revealing more than I had bargained for. I began to see glimpses, ghostly apparitions of forgotten moments, a fierce argument between my parents, the distance growing ever wider, my father haunted by a choice made in desperate silence. Stop. I don't want to know. Not like this. I cried, the revelations tearing at the edges of my sanity. And just as I threw my hands out, begging for sanctuary, the form wavered, retreating as if pushed back by the intensity of our determination. In its retreat, it hissed one last revelation, a twist that sent my heart plummeting into an abyss. Prepare for the storm, child, there are deeper secrets, truths you've yet to uncover. Are you ready for what follows? With that last word swirling in the air, the ground beneath us trembled, and the flickering light we had clung to threatened to dim. I felt my mother's hand slipping slightly, her strength beginning to fatigue amid the onslaught. Mom! Hold on. We're closer than we've ever been, don't let go. The panic in my voice felt raw, a plea laced with deepening uncertainty as the shadows heralded the revelation to come. But uncertainty hung thick in the air, and I realized we stood on the precipice of a revelation that could either bind us together or tear the very fabric of who we were apart. With that chilling thought echoing in our ears, we faced the undulating tempest, hearts beating in unsettling harmonia, question lingering yet unanswered. What would we find on the other side? Would we embrace the reasons we had faltered, or would we be shattered by the truths that lay in wait? The atmosphere felt electric, charged with a mix of dread and anticipation, as I clutched my mother's hand tightly. The shadows pulsed like a heart beating with anger and sorrow, each contraction echoing a lingering question. My mind was swirling, grappling with the implications of the shape's warning. What secrets had festered within my family, hidden beneath layers of fragile hope? Mom, I began, breathless, but the words felt inadequate in the face of what was to come. The air thickened, constricting my chest. I could feel my mother, usually a bastion of strength, trembling beside me, a reflection of my own fears. Together, she murmured, her voice steady yet tinged with uncertainty. No matter what we uncover, we stand together. The statement ignited a flicker of confidence within me. Together. That was our only option. As the shadow continued to writhe, the spectral glimpses of our past began to solidify before us, a collage of anguish, moments steeped in regret. Then I saw it, me father's face, etched in lines of anguish, gazing at a weathered piece of paper, not just any paper, but a letter, yellowed with age. I felt a wave of sorrow wash over me. The letter grew tangible, and my heart raced. What had he hidden? The truth won't harm you unless you allow it to, the shadow taunted, its form flickering with dark delight. Are you ready for a truth that upends everything? I wanted to step back, to shield myself from the revelations that threatened to rip apart the fabric of our family's history, but I could not. I could barely breathe as I nodded, my voice faltering. We have to know. We can't live in this shadow any longer. As if meeting my determination halfway, the shadows coalesced into a tapestry of voices, me father's laughter, my mother's tears, the sweet melodies of childhood now smeared with strokes of despair. It was too much, a cacophony layered with regret, and I clutched my mother's hand even tighter. The letter slipped from the mists, hovering before us. My heart raced as it unfurled, revealing words written in an elegant, familiar hand. To my dearest family. But just then, with a blistering rush, the shadows erupted, enveloping the letter in a gust of wind that whipped through our hair. You want the truth? Then brace yourselves. The storm of memories won't soften the blow. Just as the words tore at my heart, a sudden warmth enveloped us, almost like an embrace. It felt as if a tender light broke forth through the darkness, illuminating the chaotic swirl of memories. Was that kindness rising from the depths of despair, or merely a trick of the shadows? Remember, love, my mother's voice pierced through the tumult, filled with a gentle conviction that anchored me amidst the chaos. There's beauty entangled in pain, and strength in our scars. We cannot forget the warmth that kept us going. With renewed resolve, I focused on the light. Let it show us, I urged, searching deep within, willing the words of the letter to take form before us. Silently, the air crackled, and the familiar scent of my father's cologne enveloped me. Memories rolled out, vivid and warm. The sound of laughter, the sense of safety, family dinner, so many moments woven with love interspersed with turmoil, but amid this nostalgic serenade, there was a dark undertone, a whisper of loss. I remembered the sudden silence that descended upon our home, that time when laughter faded and shadows took over. What happened to make the kind-hearted man in those memories retreat into himself? As if the shadows sensed my growing resolve, they shifted abruptly, a monstrous wave of darkness coming closer, unfurling the letter one final time, revealing its contents in stark relief. I cannot be the man I was meant to be, a frail voice echoed, filled with regret and bitterness. Stop! I screamed, desperately wanting to cut through the encroaching tendrils. You don't get to dictate our story. You don't get to rewrite our past with your darkness. In that moment, the shadows crashed against us, pressing heavily, forcing me to confront the growing realization that my father's struggles were not entirely of his own making. I glimpsed the choices he had faced, the worn path he had traveled, burdened by the weight of unspoken hope amidst despair. Just as the realization threatened to reach its peak, the shadows hesitated. This time I could feel their fury receding, replaced by something almost tender, reflection. Will you stand to forgive? The shadow whispered, not in mockery this time, but with a lingering yearning that caught my breath. It felt like a question by the universe itself, a reminder that healing could only start when forgiveness intertwined with acceptance, and there, within the swirling tumult, fear blossomed into something unexpected, an opportunity. Let's choose to forgive, Mom, I found myself saying, my voice trembling but strong. Let's unravel this together. But just as I felt a warmth of understanding building between us, the satisfying crackle of our determination was shattered by a deafening roar that resounded like thunder through the air. The very ground began to shake beneath our feet, and I felt the shadows surge forward, ravenous, racing towards us. Suddenly, a sharp scream cut through the storm, a voice I recognized too late. Get away from them! As I turned, my heart dropped into my gut. My brother, a figure I thought I had lost forever, emerged from the shadows, caught in the grip of chaos, staring at me with haunted eyes full of fear. No! I gasped, feeling the tremor of horror shoot through my chest. No, not him. In that moment, as the shadows encroached on us, the past and present collided in a cataclysm of truth that I could no longer ignore. What lay ahead was an uncertain embrace, a storm brewing darker than I could have ever fathomed, a confrontation with everything our family had endured, and a reckoning that would transform us all. Time seemed to slow as I watched my brother standing on the precipice between light and shadow, his face twisted in confusion and fear. The world around us pulsed with a terrible energy, the very air heavy with the weight of our shared history, the darkness looming like an inescapable wave. Ethan! I cried, my voice laced with desperation and anger. What are you doing here? But even as I spoke, I knew the universe had drawn us together at this very moment, one final test of our resolve. He stepped forward, almost hesitantly, his brow furrowed as if the ground beneath us trembled with unspoken truths. I couldn't let you face this alone. I had to come, he gasped, the vulnerability in his voice striking a chord deep within my heart. Get away! My father shouted, his protective instinct flaring up again, a wall of defense rising around the widening chasm of our lives that had begun to fracture. But I felt a sudden shift, a warm brightness blossoming in the chamber of shadows, illuminating the fractured spaces of our hearts. No! Wait! I yelled, realizing that Ethan represented a piece I had thought lost, a missing shard of our complicated family puzzle. We needed him, we needed to be entire again. Ethan, please. You have to stand with us, I pleaded, a fire igniting within my chest as the overlapping shadows surged forward, threatening to devour everything we held dear. This isn't just about our past, it's about the future we can choose to create. He looked at me, eyes wide with uncertainty and courage, and for a breathless moment, the weight of his own silence hung between us. We had been caught up in our individual pains, but this moment demanded our reunification. "You don't understand, I'm scared. I thought I could forget everything. I thought I could escape," Ethan admitted, looking at our father as if searching for absolution, but I could see the flicker of hope hidden beneath his apprehension, the yearning to be understood. "We can work through it together," I urged him, stepping closer, risking the uncertainty with newfound strength. "We don't have to carry this burden of silence anymore. We can finally speak our truths." "Truths?" he echoed, his voice thick with an intensity that threatened to shatter everything. From the shadows, the darkness hissed, nudged by our rising courage, but it did not snuff out our light. It actually flickered brighter in response. "Ethan," I breathed, eyes searching his. "We've lost so much already. Reclaim our family. All of us. All our narratives, all our love. Together." Our father's steady gaze shifted toward Ethan, a flicker of hope igniting as he spoke. "Son, I know I haven't always walked this path with you, but I love you more than you know. You've always been part of this family. You can make this choice." The shadows recoiled for a moment, perhaps sensing the growing unity between us. I could feel the air crackle with tension, as if even the darkness around us feared the strength of our bond. A war of emotions played out across Ethan's face, battling against the anguish of our history, of the hurt buried deep beneath the layers of silence. "What if I fail you again?" he whispered, the pain of past choices flooding through him like thunder. "No," I cried out, stepping forward to hold his hand tightly. "You're not just a collection of mistakes. You are so much more than that, just as we all are. We learn, we grow. We're family. What if I can't forgive myself?" Ethan's voice was strained, yet tinged with longing for the camaraderie and love we had once shared. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting," I whispered, guided by a burgeoning light within. "It's an act of courage. It's recognizing our flaws and choosing to face them together." The warmth enveloped me, echoing the strength of love we could harness between us, guiding our reunion. It was in that moment of raw vulnerability that the shadows halted, confused and twisting, their ominous shrouds retreating somewhat. I turned my gaze to Ethan, willing all the warmth and acceptance I could muster into him. "We can do this. We can break free from the bonds of the past and forge a new path forward. Will you fight with us?" He hesitated for a heartbeat, heavy with uncertainty, but then something shifted behind his eyes. A small spark of determination ignited, a flicker of the brother I had loved fiercely all my life. "Together, right?" he asked, his voice steadying. "Yes. Together," I affirmed, and we shifted closer, forming a united front, three souls intertwined in devotion. Suddenly, the shadows surged back, furious and relentless, but under the warmth of our bond, they met resistance. "You cannot break us," I shouted, wrapping my arms around both my brother and father, a ripple of light bursting forth. "We are more than the darkness that binds us. We are love, we are hope." The room pulsed with the intensity of our unity, vibrant threads weaving through the air, pouring light onto the darkness. The shadows began to writhe, their forms appearing almost tortured, as if they could no longer withstand the weight of the truths unearthing in our hearts. "What are you?" the dark entity cried, as the warmth surged brighter with each resolve we forged. "You cannot escape me." "No." We thundered as one, our voices rising in unison like a powerful chorus. "We are not just shadows, we are a family." "Not anymore," the apparition shrieked. "You don't belong together." "Yes, we do," Ethan shouted, a fierce light erupting within him. "We choose to be a family. We choose to embrace our imperfections." In that single moment of collective belief, a shockwave of warmth erupted, flooding the room in pure, radiant energy. The shadows shrieked, recoiling as the brilliant light engulfed us, whipping through the darkness and expunging the remnants of our fears. The raw tenderness of our shattered lives filled the air, lifting us up into the gentle embrace of healing that I closed my eyes, surrendering to the current of light as it enveloped us, illuminating promises once broken and the scars of our love. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt the chains of judgment slip away, and in their place bloomed the acceptance we needed. With one final, anguished roar, the shadows dissipated into the ether, flaring into 1,000 sparkles of vapor, melting away beneath the onslaught of our collective love. As the brilliance faded, we stood amidst a newfound quieta cocoon of warmth and belonging enfolding us. I opened my eyes to see Ethan and my father's faces illuminated by the remnants of light, both etched with relief and love. Together, we had embraced our shadows and surrendered to the beauty of our shared journey, an emotional tapestry woven with acceptance, and it was in that moment, standing beside the people I loved, that I finally felt whole again. I reached for Ethan's hand, squeezing it tightly, while my father stepped closer, wrapping his arm around both of us. "Together, always," he murmured, and the softness in his voice held a promise that resonated deep within, a commitment to face whatever came next, united. In that fragile, beautiful space, I understood that love, in all its imperfect forms, could mend the deepest scars. I could finally breathe, embracing the choice for joy, healing, and connection. The echoes of our painful journey would remain, yet we carried with us the strength to navigate the storms ahead. Love would never fail us, not again. And as we exited the fractured memories of the shadows, stepping into the warmth of a new dawn, a memory tugged at the edges of my heart. "I love you," I whispered, eyes shimmering with unshed tears that held both sorrow and gratitude, looking at the two people who had weathered life's tempests alongside me. "Always," Ethan replied, and my father nodded, mirroring the sentiment, the three of us entwined in a circle of unwavering connection. In that powerful moment, I knew, without doubt, that together we were unstoppable. It was this unyielding bond that would guide us through our light, our healing journey, intertwining in a dance of love that would never break. With spirits lifted and hearts renewed, the shadows would never overshadow our voices again, and as we walked forward, hand in hand, a truth settled deep within me had discovered the greatest power of all. I had faced my fears, embraced my love, and finally let my heart soar. Our past might have shaped us, but it no longer defined us. As the sun broke through the horizon, bathing us in warmth, I took a deep breath, whispering my hopes into the embrace of the morning. Together, we would rise stronger, together for all the days to come. In that moment of clarity, with clarity washing over me, I understood love was our greatest weapon, and forgiveness was the path to freedom. As I gazed into my family's eyes, a smile broke across my face. "Together, we are unstoppable," I said, and the truth was written across every fiber of my being, triumphant and undying.